Jai Guru, everyone.
Jagger.
Jai Guru.
Welcome to our podcast, which is entitled Awake Minute by Minute. My name is Priyank, and I'm with Mike and Chris. Introduce yourself, please, Mike.
Hey, I'm Mike. I'm at the moment in Vienna, and I am happy to be on this podcast.
And I'm Chris. I'm Northern Irish. In Northern Ireland at the minute, I will soon be in Brazil once COVID restrictions lift. So my background hopefully will be, beautiful sun, blue skies, and birds tweeting. So happy to be in the podcast as well.
Different to where you are now, as opposed to Chris.
Yes, very different.
So who are we? We are a few friends, I suppose. We met at the London Centre. I might as well start with myself. So my name is Priyank Patel. I'm an engineer. I live and work in London, of Indian descent, I suppose. I've been with Yogananda for maybe 15, 20 years, something like that, and took Kriya about 10 years ago. Awake. We'll talk about Awake in a second. Let's do a fuller introduction of Mike before we carry on.
All right. So, like I said, I'm from Vienna, Austria, but I lived in London for the past 8 years and met Priyank and Chris there at the London SRF Center, which is very beautiful. My background is I'm a software engineer, which some engineers would say is not an engineer, but I...
Namely me.
Developer, Mike, developer.
Developer. It works for me as well. But then real estate people might get offended. I don't know. Like whatever you say is wrong. Yeah, and I also was a big fan of the Awake movie, and I can't wait for us to talk about it.
Yeah. Maybe I can jump in there as well. I don't know who exactly is going to be listening to this or watching this. So just to kind of clarify what's meant by SRF and the Centre, London Centre Self-Realization Fellowship, Yogananda's fellowship. Yogananda, we can delve into this later on, but just to clarify that the three of us met through the Self-Realization Fellowship. So I imagine if you're listening to this, you probably are similar background to ourselves, but very much welcome. Just to touch and expand on my background a little bit as well. I've come from in Northern Ireland, just to say this is kind of interesting from my perspective as to why I'm here and who I am. I was brought up with a Protestant father and a Catholic mother in Northern Ireland. That's quite an interesting mix. And I was quite agnostic most of my life, and I think I came on to Master Yogananda probably 2016. I think, in fact, it was 2016 November. I think it was, it's changed my life really. So I think we'll maybe touch on why we're actually here and our motivations for that. But that's a quick snippet of background for myself.
Yes, thank you, Chris. So it's important to say we're not doing this in any official capacity for any organization such as Self-Realization Fellowship or in India, Yogoda Satsang Society. This is just an Irishman, an Austrian and an Indian, British Indian hanging out, talking about the film Awake, the life of Yogananda, and we absolutely obviously love this film, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. So let's discuss why we're doing this. So in this introduction, we're just going to talk about things that you'll find useful to know before you delve into this project with us, if it so takes your fancy. So let's talk about our goals before we get into any meat, really. Mike, what are your personal goals about this project we're undertaking?
So first of all, it's a personal interest. I really like the film, and part of this podcast will be we will talk of every minute of the movie, and that involves a lot of research about the actors, about the story, the background, and obviously the life of Yogananda as well. And I'm really looking forward to doing all of that, really. So personal interest is there. If other people enjoy our conversations and like to listen in, I mean, that's even better. So I love it. This is my main motivation, really.
Similar with me, it's a very selfish motivation on my part. Totally, enjoy having conversations with Mike and Priyank, with you guys, and then Yogananda. I think we can all come together and probably talk about Yogananda all day, and then of course the movie. It's pretty awesome, and really, if by any means anybody gets introduced through us to Yogananda, that would be a complete honor. I think I literally couldn't ask for anything more than that. So as far as my motivations go, selfishness as well.
Yes, interesting you mentioned the unselfishness part of it. We will not be monetizing this in any way. And that means we hope to have no adverts. We won't be asking for you to donate any money anywhere. So, but if you wish to, that's your obviously own prerogative, but we won't be directing that anywhere ourselves. So we're not looking at this as any sort of commercial venture by any means. So in terms of my own personal ambitions and goals, yeah, very well articulated by Chris and Mike. Personally, I love analyzing things in depth, and I've seen other movies, minute by minute movies, namely The Matrix. Actually, it got me into it, and Matrix is obviously a very deep film, and you can go really far into the depths of like the symbology and the cast, etc. in Matrix. But actually, if we look at the movie Awake, there's actually infinite more layers and depth to a movie or a documentary such as Awake. And I thought, wow, why not do that? And Chris, Mike, and I, we meet often, and we generally discuss things around Yogananda and spirituality, and people generally find that quite useful. We have friends that come in and out of that conversation, and we thought, why not make that formalize that and make that into a podcast such as this. And we're really obviously really excited to do this, but bear with us. For example, we're learning the ropes. We're not professionals, as you probably would have gathered already by what you've heard and seen. So let's talk about our format. Chris, what's our format?
So really, the format of the podcast will be just as you could imagine, a minute by minute assessment on the film or documentary. So we will open up and have the initial scenes described and analyzed, and we'll just move through them methodically like that. We probably will go into tangents, so hopefully those tangents will be useful and interesting, as they probably will be for us. So
yes, so I think yeah, good point, Chris. It will obviously be helpful. So if we're saying we're discussing minute 1, which is the first minute, what that means is if you have the DVD or the streaming file, you want to go from 0 to the first minute, 0 to 59 seconds, and watch that before you listen to or watch the podcast, and that will help the articulate discussion. So how are we going to host it, Mike? How are we going to do that?
Yeah, so we're going to take turns, each of us, in hosting. We basically, obviously, we will do some research before watch the movie, and then we will basically identify things that we find interesting and then expand on them in turn. That will always be the same, but there will always be one person asking more the questions and the other two expanding more on the subject. And from there, we will. Can I talk about the guests as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and from there we want to then go on and have guests who are ideally guests who have something to do with the movie, like who played in the movie, maybe who played a part in its creation, but also people like us who are just interested and would have an interesting point of view. We would be thrilled to have people on.
Absolutely. So if you are interested in being a guest, please do message us. So that comes neatly onto where to find us. Mike, where they're going to find us?
You're going to find us in many different places. So we have our podcast on Anchor, which is a podcast platform by Spotify. Obviously, then you will also find us in the podcast section on Spotify. But also, if you are used to using on your Apple or on your Android phone, the podcast apps there, you will find us there as well as on castbox.com. We also put our podcast there. So you will find us in all those places.
So all the big players like Google Podcast, the Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. So we'll be posting the videos of this, should you be so inclined to watch it on YouTube, and the video of us talking and our reactions, which should actually be quite nice because I like, for example, when I host, I like to throw in curveballs, and then you'll get to see their facial reactions to the curveball that I throw out there. So we've already recorded a few episodes. So I know, for example, I've made Chris very embarrassed at some of the things that I've asked him, and you can explore those when you get there. But we've already recorded a few. The first episode we were really learning the ropes, so do mind the audio quality. It's not where we would like. It's not as good as what this episode is, but after the first episode, it gets a lot better. And you can also find us on Instagram, right? Awake.minute is our handle, and that is where we shall be, and that's where you can find us. So, any more? Chris, any more?
No, I think that's it, really nicely summarized. For anybody who does have any recommendations, any feedback, feel free to get in touch with us. We do have an email address set up, right? Sorry, which
yes.
One of you know the email address? I don't.
Mike, the email is awakeminute1893@gmail.com.
That's correct. And you can also give feedback on Instagram or YouTube comments. Those are like ways that people also use often.
Yeah, we're small enough right now to be able to read any comments and get back to anybody. So feel free to engage.
Excellent. Mike, any more for you?
I think that wraps it up.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to seeing you. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.